I watched my city die, the secret truth of the plague doctors. A first-person historical narrative based on true records of the Black Death. I still remember the smell, not the kind you wash out of your clothes. No, this one clings to your memory like rot clings to flesh. The smell of bodies stacked like forgotten luggage on the streets of Florence, 1348. We thought God had abandoned us. What I did not know then, and what the world would not learn for centuries, was far worse. We were betrayed. The first death came with my brother, Matteo. He was strong, loud, always smiling, the type of man who filled a room simply by standing in it. One morning he woke shivering, his skin hot like burning iron. By nightfall, terrible swollen lumps grew under his arms and neck. Buboes, they called them. We prayed, we begged, we paid all we owned to the men dressed in long, black coats and bird-like masks. They told us he would survive. He didn't. When they carried his body away wrapped in linen, one of the doctors whispered, "You must stay calm. Panic kills faster." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Weeks passed, and the dead multiplied like flies. Church bells rang day and night until they became part of breathing. Soon the living were fewer than the corpses. One night I followed a plague doctor through the narrow alleys, the moon glinting off his curved beak. He entered a house marked with a red cross, the sign of the doomed. I listened from the window. There were no prayers, no treatment, no attempt to save the shaking family inside. Only cold instruction: collect them. I watched them wrap the mother, the father, and then a child barely 5. She was alive, crying weakly, but they wrapped her like the dead. And then I understood. These men were not healers. They were harvesters. Their strange masks were filled not with cure, but with herbs and strong vapors to numb their senses. The beak did not save the dying. It protected the collector from the smell of death spreading through Europe. They entered homes not as saviors, but as silent managers of the apocalypse, making us believe survival was possible, even though they knew it wasn't. Florence slowly disappeared. Shops emptied, prayers faded into dust, children vanished from the streets. I walked alone where thousands once laughed. Now only wind remained, pushing corpse carts across silent stones. They say 25 million souls died, but numbers mean nothing when one of them is someone you love. Matteo was not a statistic. He was a brother, a life erased, a name only I remember now. And that is why I speak. People remember the plague as disease but forget the deeper wound. We were lied to. The doctors were not evil. They were tools of the crown, of the church, of the fear that ruled us. Hope was the medicine they fed us, and hope killed more than the plague itself. I survived, but when I close my eyes, I hear the bells again. Sometimes through smoke or fog, I swear I see the mask, long-beaked, hollow-eyed, the silent promise of help that never came. And I know the truth no one taught us in history. We didn't just die of disease, we died of trust. I did not fear death until I saw it take everyone I loved. I was 19 when the plague arrived in our village, though no one spoke its name at first. They called it the cough, the black swelling, the night fever, but never the plague. It was as if saying it would summon it faster. My father was the first to fall. One evening he returned from the market pale and silent, and by morning his neck was swollen with dark lumps the size of eggs. My mother held his hand while he shook with fever, whispering prayers into skin already turning cold. We sent for a doctor, one of those men with the long black coat and the bird-like mask, but he did not look at my father, not truly. He pressed a stick to his tongue, nodded once, and asked for payment. When we begged him to stay, he simply said, "There is nothing to be done." That was the first time I heard those words. I would hear them again 100 times. Within a week, the bell tolled for my father, then the neighbor, then the family across the road. Coffins could not be made fast enough. The churchyard filled like a basin under rain. Soon there were no funerals, only pits. I remember walking through the village at dusk, stepping over straw mats left outside doors to show sickness inside. Windows were nailed shut. Children cried for parents who would never return. And the smell was everywhere, sweet and rotten like fruit left too long in the sun. They said the doctors were here to save us. But what cure involves no healing? Their masks were stuffed with herbs so they would not gag as they collected our dead. They told us to stay inside, to pray, to burn incense, to wait. We waited, and the plague devoured us. My mother lasted 14 days longer than my father. She held on with shaking hands, telling me not to come near, not to touch her, but I could not listen. I fed her broth she could not swallow, cooled her head with cloths that steamed with fever, and when she died, she still tried to smile for me. I buried her myself. By then I had grown used to the dead, the way their eyes stayed open, as if surprised by silence. Now I live alone in a house built for 5. The market is empty. The church is empty. The world is empty. I survived, though I do not know why. Sometimes I think the plague forgot me. Sometimes I think survival is the crueler fate. When I close my eyes at night, I see black coats and white corpses, hear bells that never stop ringing, taste ash in the air like winter that never ends. They say the plague will fade. They say life will return. They said many things before, but I have learned this truth carved in loss. It was not death I feared. It was living long enough to remember it.